just going live on YouTube. Thank you for being nice and early. We're going to have some serious fun on the Empower Hour, as always, Alarm Radio and the Inspired Tribe. We'll be going live very shortly. Just going live on. There we are. And let's go. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in this evening. This is the Empower Hour. It's the Empower Hour show with Salam Radio here in the UK, in Peterborough. If you're tuning in across the globe, thank you very much for the love and affection and the support for this channel and this show. In this particular show, we are in episode 80. 80. I can't believe we've done 80 episodes specifically. But we're going to be introducing very, very shortly Aimee, our Buchler, our introduction for our guest today. But before I go into there, I'll just explain to you what the Empower Hour show is truly about. With myself, Sukhi Wahiwala, we bring you global individuals who are influencers, people who are what we call successful business people, successful thought leaders, people who have created change, coaches, mentors, and health experts. And today we're going to have virtually nearly all of that in one person, would you believe? And we deliver change. We want you to see that normal people like yourself and I are the ones who create such amazing lives for ourselves and helping others through empowerment of other souls. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest this evening. Our guest this evening is Aimee Buchler. She is very young, one thing, but in what she's achieved in life is just astounding. We have such a brilliant conversation earlier, and I'd like to introduce her as the person who I think is not only being a coach to people with mindset and structure of the brain, but somebody who's actually touching people's hearts with real, true, honest, holistic healing and optimism and optimization, should I say, sorry. Basically, a person who looks into people's unconscious minds, lifestyles, and creates prevention and solution for health ailments such as diabetes, hypertension, that's blood pressure, and a number of other ailments. And herself as an individual who used to be as a qualified personal trainer and moved into the whole nutritional qualified game, where she's helping people through food, exercise, yoga, and many of the things which we can jump into. But what really is a touching part of her story is how, in essence, I'm going to say this with gratitude, she could pay attention to her mum through the last few years of her life with gratitude. And I've shared this, and we've had a discussion about this, and Amy's very happy to share how her mum had a cancer, which Aimee had the good fortune to be by her side throughout the whole and nurse her. And we'll be talking about this much more. So welcome, Aimee.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It truly is. It's an amazing pleasure for us to have you here with us as well. The audience that we deal with are the Inspired Tribes, Salam Radio, and they are global. I'm so proud that we have such a high hit ratio, watch ratio, and people from all over the globe. And audience, she's tuning in from Sao Paulo in actual Brazil. She's in Brazil.
Yeah.
How cool is that with this current voice over IP internet protocol facilitation?
Yes, I would say this is the best thing that could happen nowadays, right? To have this technology.
It surely is, truly. So I'd like to, if I can, we get straight to the conversation. If you don't mind, I'd like to talk to you about a bit about your journey so far, because the whole principle of this show is to prove to everybody that we're real people. We're humble, honest, genuine people who have turned our lives around after having some challenges in life, and that everybody else can do the same. So my question to yourself is, if you can help us, Aimee, where are you from?
I am born and raised in London, and London born and bred, and I've traveled a lot, and I actually went to a French school.
Wow.
So picked up a lot of different cultures and languages, and was very much, presented with different varieties of cultures at the very early stages of my life. So from London, but a worldwide soul, I'd say.
How amazing is that? So somebody, what we call homegrown here in London.
Yeah.
I'm actually London being UK, but I'm not actually. I'm from Peterborough. But what an amazing journey! So I'm going to pick a little bit, if you can. Can I just ask a few questions around your French schools? So growing up in a French school, logically French medium school here in the UK, is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
that's right.
what kind of people? I mean, that must have been an amazing journey or an experience. What kind of people were you interacting with? How was the school teachers, and what sort of what we call diaspora, and were actually at attending the school? Because that sounds really expensive.
Yeah. Well, it was actually half private, half public.
Mhm.
And when you turn 16, you have the choice to go into the English section or stay in the French section, do the French system, or go and do the British system. I chose to do the British system just because my whole family is English. No one's actually French in my family. My sisters went to an English school. My mum thought it would be fun to send me to a French school because she went to a French school and she wanted to speak French with someone, I think. So
Oh wow, how
yeah,
lovely!
so she sent me that. It was amazing, to be honest, because my whole group of friends are truly and honestly from a whole bunch of different countries and cultures around the world. Like, we are a group of 15 people who are very, very close, and each one of us are from different places around the world, originally and born as well. So it's a very amazing mix, and it's taught me a lot about, how we are all the same. Essentially, there is no difference. We get attached to different ideals, but there's no difference at the end of the day.
Aimee, that's wonderful to hear. But I heard something very specific. You said 15 of us. I take it that you're still in touch with 15 of your friends from school.
Yeah,
That is
yeah.
unheard of. I can't
Uh-huh.
name 15 of my school friends. I mean, it was only last year that I left school. I know you can tell, but my question to yourself is, how did that happen? Was the convivial nature, the connection? Obviously, you wouldn't know it from a standard school, from public school. But how did 15 of you keep together in friendship?
Do you know what? I do think it's quite a rarity for this to happen at this number.
Yes, yeah,
And we've
really.
we've obviously, yeah, we've got like the main, eight who are like family, and
Mhm.
then we have the rest who we're all still very close, but it's, some have moved abroad and things like that. So it's kind of a more like distant crew, but we're still very close. And I think it's just because, I don't know, I honestly believe this to be the case. When you grow up
Mhm.
in such a big school, so we were 4,000 kids in the whole school.
That is
And
massive.
when you grow up in such a big school with so many different people, you have the opportunity to continuously meet new
Mhm.
people. So we kind of formed our group over the years. And
Mhm.
I think it was in the last 3-4 years that we really got close, and it was a friendship that was never to be broken after that. You
Wow.
kind of, I think we also just got lucky. We just gravitated towards each other in
Honestly,
a lucky way.
Aimee, I'll tell you the honest truth. From a lot of experience of working with thousands of people, I rarely find somebody who's probably still in friendship with maybe two, if not one or two
Yeah.
people from school. But that's such a blessing. But I thought I grew up in a school. I went to Jack Hunt School here in Peterborough, and it was one of the largest schools in Peterborough, which is near Cambridge. Um, we had like 1,100 people, but you're talking nearly 4x that.
Hmm.
And so,
Yeah.
were the actual classrooms themselves bigger or smaller? What sort of size was the classroom?
Yeah. There were 30 to 40 people per
Wow.
classroom. So for one teacher to handle, I'm not sure how they did it. I understand why they were quite strict.
Yeah, I was going to say, just about to say that to yourself. I'm sure they were very
Yeah.
strict. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. They were, very, I would say, very old school and traditional in
Mhm.
their methods of teaching. But you did have the one or two who really wanted to bring out the creativity of the kids and who was passionate, I guess. Whenever you're passionate, you tend to be more loving with what you do, right?
Yeah, that was such a very good identification because modern schools, from my understanding, obviously they're now starting to get a good mix of this. But when you go to the more grammar style grammar schools, the original ones, when you get the older style teachers, as you just said, they were
Yeah.
very strict, but one or two were cutting through with the new creative energy. You see, the assumption that creativity is non-academic is a bit of a farce, but we'll talk about that a bit later
Mm.
because of the fact that you need creative logic in order to be systematic and processed. But that's a wonderful thought.
Absolutely.
You know, that really is inspiring that you're so tight and close with such a group of people. But you're right now in Brazil, so you're away and you've created a lifestyle that allows you, and we'll touch on this a bit later, but you've created a lifestyle around helping people with coaching and obviously holistic practices. You genuinely have a laptop lifestyle that you could actually go anywhere. Can I ask you a question? Did the pandemic, and our heart genuinely goes out to anybody who's been affected by the pandemic with a death, with illness themselves. So may God bless you always with that environment. But has the pandemic itself actually infected, changed, affected the way you're delivering this? Was it always one-to-one, or has it kind of actually catapulted it and helped it for you to be able to now travel places such as, you know, in Brazil, and we're in England, you know, we're cutting across 3 hours of time?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, COVID enabled me to bring my business online a lot faster than I was trying to do it, because I really love working one-to-one with people. Initially, it wasn't really something I wanted to do, because I have a very high-end service and I work one-to-one with people very, very, very closely, and we have 24/7 contact with each other, and I'm constantly looking over them. So, you know, being on a laptop wasn't really what I wanted to do. But when I was forced into the situation, I did realize that it was actually quite a beautiful thing, because I could really do what I'm doing from abroad. There's nothing that I can't do from abroad other than train people one-to-one in person. But the people I work with are so advanced in their, you know, training already. I think it would only be, you know, it might only be a bit more difficult for people who are just beginning, even if we are on Zoom, you know, because I cannot physically touch you and move you.
Yeah, I understand that. So, you know, physicality amendments and changes and stuff. But that the catapulting, you know, the actual making it, I suppose, easier and more acceptable. Is that correct? I mean, because when you're working with people in coaching, and I have a full mentoring program and a mastermind program as well with the business boardroom program, but it's far more accepted to dial it in now. Does that make sense? We're still delivering at full pelt, to be honest. But everyone's very acceptant of VoIP, you know, voice over internet protocol, so Zoom or what we're using right now. Did you find that people were not wanting it before and now they're quite comfortable with it? How's that?
Yeah, I think, you know, when you're forced into a situation, we're very good at adapting as humans. And I think everyone just had to adapt to it, you know. And I think once you start getting used to things such as wearing masks, you just do it and you stop complaining about it and you just get on with it, because it becomes more of a norm than it used to be. So again, I think it's about adaptation, and that's something that we're so good at as humans, you know, is adapting, especially if we have the desire to just want to adapt, then we adapt much faster.
That is so powerful. The desire, the intent, the intention. I love it. Thank you very much for highlighting that. And I hope the audience is thoroughly enjoying this as well already. So if I can just, if you don't mind, I can go a little bit differently into a different direction here. Significant moments, we've talked about a few significant moments. Do you have any actual memories that you would like to share with us that really have kind of been a positive influence in your life?
Definitely. When I was 17, I started training in the gym. I was always a dancer my whole life. So I was in ballet and contemporary dance. And then instead of going professional, well, fully professional, I decided to leave that industry because it was very much going to, you know, close me down into just dance. And I'm someone who's I like to explore. I'm very curious about the world. So I decided to get into training, and I was interested in the body and how you can shape it and how it can change and all of this, and very much how, you know, a caterpillar becomes a butterfly. So I began training in the gym, and then I became a personal trainer. I went to LA and became a trainer. And then I traveled around the world for a year and started coaching from the age of 18. And I was training people in different countries with language barriers in Vietnam and Cambodia. And it was very interesting because we didn't speak the same language at all. So it was all via movement and it teaches you a lot about how you can really communicate with the body.
Yeah.
But I would say, oh, sorry, you want
So
to?
it's okay. No, no, of course. I mean,
Yeah.
human input stage sees no language. We have
Yeah.
55% of communication is delivered physiologically, and only
Mm-hmm.
37% is delivered by sound, tone, pace, and tempo, and only
Yeah.
7% of human input stage or communication is delivered by actual word of language. That's so
Mm-hmm.
powerful. So I can clearly see that that's how you manage to cross the barriers of language.
Yeah.
What I'm really hearing here, Aimee, is a truly inspirational story, and I hope everybody else is being very empowered by the possibilities of life. 18 years old, and you're from England, and you've gone to LA, and you become a PT. Did the journey to LA happen because of the dancing? And when you're 18 years old, I mean, how many 18-year-olds do you know that decide, oh, I'm going to become
Yeah.
a coach, I'm going to go around the world. This is mind-boggling. It's wonderful to hear. Such an inspirational story. Thank you for sharing. The question I'm going to ask you is, how did you get to LA, and how did that PT
Mm-hmm.
journey start? And then, honestly, what button flicked for you to start to be coaching people?
Yeah, I think, well, going to what button clicked for me to start coaching people, um, it was me having my own coaches. So I've always seeked mentors and coaches in every area of my life. I'm very much someone who wants to better myself, and I find that we're such interesting beings, human beings. We have a scope of growth that's so large and so vast. If we actually allow ourselves to integrate into it and explore it, we can do incredible things. So I felt that from a very young age, and I was very curious about life. And so my coaches inspired me to coach because they
Wow.
were just inspiring me so much. Um, so I went to LA, became a PT in LA, and
The journey to
it was
from
an
England to
amazing
LA.
journey.
How did that happen?
Yeah.
Let's decide to get up and go to LA.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking of where to go, to do this course.
Uh-huh.
I was like, maybe I should go to Australia, or, because I wanted to it was a gap year essentially at that time. So I wanted to
Yes.
travel and go and just explore. And and this was also very soon after my mum had passed away. It was probably a year after. So I was, in that zone of just like, I need to go and be free and be young and explore and all of that. So
Wow.
I went to LA. The journey was amazing. My time there was incredible. It really shows you how, like, when I got there, I realized how many people need and want coaching, and especially when I was there, because all my colleagues who were coaches and who had been coaches for years were just telling me about their journeys. And it just, we all search for coaching, whether we want to admit it or not, whether our egos allow us to admit it or not. We
Yes.
really want mentorship. And I think that's the beauty of human life, is that we're able to help each other and mentor each other in the areas we're not best at. And it's very important to stay humble and remember that we aren't the best in all the areas.
I think you've just touched on something there. Thank you for stopping there. The ego. What a brilliant identification. Now, when you're telling me that people all use coaches, coaches are people who stimulate you, who peak potential you, who get you to do things that maybe you're stuck in your comfort zone for. I believe personally in the UK, there is a stigma and a dogma attached to saying, I've got a coach. But which Olympian, and which, as you said, you're a dancer, does anybody know who are listening and watching today, which Olympian do you know who hasn't got a coach to get them to that top end of the game? So if it's okay for an Olympian, let's say Usain Bolt, to be the fastest person on the planet with a coach, wouldn't it
Yeah.
be a secret to say, go and get yourself a coach, keeps you on track?
Exactly.
Wow, what a brilliant identification there. Thank you for that, Aimee.
Yeah.
Um,
I also say that, like, it's like, if you want to do your accounts, you can sit and do your accounts, or if you're able to, you get an accountant. It's the same with getting a health coach. Either you
yes.
can, not do anything or try and do something, or just seek advice.
Wow.
It's worth the money, the time that you're going to put in elsewhere
Yeah.
in my
One,
opinion, you
some
know.
of our coaches, some of our, I'm a mentor to coaches. So some of our
Hmm.
coaches um, have said that one of the biggest, and myself as well, one of the biggest take homes is having the answer at the time when you need it, as opposed to, like you said, you're available 24/7 to your mentees and to your coaches. That if they've got something that's playing on their mind, that they can reach out to you and actually
Yeah.
get the answer quicker, because that means all that deprivation of thought, distraction, is reduced and it's converted to a positive energy via the coach. Is that the kind of stuff you do with your mentees and coaches?
Definitely, definitely, yeah. They can speak to me anytime they want. So that's part of the program. It's not really an hour of my day or an hour of their day. It's more like, you know, we're trying to change their lifestyle. We're trying to optimize their whole lifestyle, and that's not something that can just take a few hours of the day. And
No.
that's why it's difficult, because a lot of people have never been so focused on their health before, because they're so focused on, you know, all the other important parts of life. So it's trying to intertwine the two and to really bring in holistic health and optimization and make people realize that without that, without your health, you
Mm.
know, the rest doesn't function properly or as well as it could. So it's really the epicenter, you know.
That's genius. And I'm telling you that this current wave of thinking has to be moving itself into this space, because you can quote the Dalai Lama that we spend our health to gain our wealth, and then we
Mm-hmm.
spend our wealth to try to gain our
Okay.
health back again. So
Yeah,
beautiful. You've caught it on the hand. May I, if I can, Aimee, just take us back a little bit before we go into how you actually help people. Now, in our guests' lives, we have what we call a time in our life, which is a life defining moment when life becomes real. It's no longer a dream. It's kind of like you realize when you feel your pinch, it's real. You hear your breathing. And I suppose very similar, and I know you were caring for mum, and my heart goes out very honestly to yourself. In 2018, I lost my mum as well. Wasn't to cancer, but it was, for heart complications. But by the way, for the audience, Aimee talks about this quite openly, so this is not like putting her on the spot, or in that case,
yeah.
everybody knows I wouldn't do that as a host. It's not my style. So well, if I go back a second, Aimee, and say that your mum fell ill, that obviously opened your mind up, with that catalyst of traveling around the world and realizing that I need to go and do and be and live. But could you identify what was your life defining moment? What really happened? When you decided enough's enough, because you're such a tender age.
Yeah. I I mean, it wasn't really throughout her being sick, but I think there were multiple moments, you know, like you start to realize what really matters. And I know that's cliche, but it's
Mm.
true. And anyone who's been through any defining moment or any trauma or anything like that will know that they do shape you. It's not just a cliche saying. It's true, you know,
Totally.
they do shape you. They do bring you awareness on life and the transience of life and the importance of life. And and I think
Reality.
you have two choices. Yeah, the reality, you know. And firstly, I think people are so scared to confront or even talk about, death in itself, which is essentially a part of life. And my friend the other day told me something very beautiful. He's just had a baby, and he said to me, Aimee, he said, what if when you're born, you essentially die from the world you know, and you're born into another world? So you die from the womb and you're born into another world. What if on a larger scale, that's exactly what happens to us? And
Mm.
I just thought it was beautiful, because it's, essentially quite an obvious thought, but not really as well. So, and it made me smile. And I just think, first of all, I would just recommend people to just explore it a little and not be so scared, because the more scared you are, and my mother was quite scared until the end, and it just takes away from your living. The more you can accept that that's coming, the more you can live for real. So um,
That is
yeah, defining moment was definitely when she passed away, for sure. Uh,
true. God bless.
Yeah, I mean, you know the deal. It's something you can't really explain, but everyone will go through eventually, and you go through the emotions of
It's one of
that
the.
you've never really felt.
It's a horrid time, a necessity, inevitability, and my heart goes out to a very close friend called Manmeet Chowdhury, who's actually just lost her mum um, just last week to COVID vaccine, to the COVID virus itself. So our heart goes out to everybody who's lost anybody through this time.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, I just like to screw, kind of turn the key backwards just a little bit and just talk a little, if I can, about what you said about the rebirthing. It's such a wonderful way of putting it. Within the Sikh faith, um, our founder Guru Nanak, he specifically said that the only truth that we truly live is death, which
Hmm.
within itself is that journey of what you just said amazingly, is accepting it, talking around it, and being around it. How did you? I mean, how old are you
I just turned 24.
exactly? And that's a similar sort of age to my daughter. You're a bit younger than my oldest daughter. So, what what happens to a person when they become so alive at such a young age? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
You're having these
yeah,
discussions with
yeah.
friends about death, and please share a few thoughts.
I mean, what happened to me was I immediately started getting very deep into spiritual practice and exploring that whole realm. And I seeked mentors and teachers in Chinese astrology, and I've worked with many different traditions, like tribal traditions from
Wow.
Brazil and Guatemala. Um, Done, plant ceremonies and beautiful ceremonies with these people, and it's
Ayahuasca,
just been, yeah, yeah.
shamanic, yes.
Yeah, shamanic ceremonies, exactly, and just exploring these avenues. But that was really like what propelled me into spirituality. I was always very into it, but I never really understood it, and I think we overcomplicate it so much
Hmm.
most of the time. And I'm still learning that on my journey, that actually the whole beauty of spirituality is learning how to surrender and stay centered in one's heart,
Hmm.
and in one's truth, no matter what's happening around. And that I find has been shown to me with no matter what tradition I work with or I've explored.
Yeah.
So that happened. I definitely got into that, and I physically started taking my body to the next level. So when I got back from my travels, I started competing in bikini bodybuilding competitions.
Wow.
And yeah, I was 19 when I did my first one. I won the two UK championships and got invited to the
Wow.
European. Yeah, it was honestly not what I was expecting. I just wanted an experience of, um, let's take the body to the next level. Like, let's see what it can do. But then it went from UK to European to then World Championships, and this was in nine
Very
months.
proud.
It was
Very
crazy.
proud. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know, a very, very proud moment. So this is to put into chronology because you've done so much and you're really inspiring and just a perfect person for empowerment, Empower Hour. Thank you. So
Cool.
you've 18 years old. You've overcome this unbelievable time of your life with your resonance of oneself, from being a happy-go-lucky type person to spending 2 years nurturing your mum, and then seeing her pass into the light, and then you then taking a journey across the globe from England to LA, like you do, like we do,
Yeah.
and then spent such a brilliant part of your life, traveling and trying to help other people through there, going through the ayahuasca principles and the structure and seeing that world,
Yeah.
only to realize that, hang on a second, yeah, let's see what we can do here. Let's try and stretch the body. Let's see where we can go. And then not just stretching the body, but actually going into competitions and then starting to win
Hmm.
them, UK, European, and going into the world.
Yeah.
What an amazing conversation. So, did you find that this, and this is very important, I think, for our audience to be hearing today, that resilience and that effort, that push to try and grow oneself, um, was something that you were born with, or did you manage to nurture it? And do you help all of your mentees and your clients to harness something like that from within?
I think I was very fortunate to have parents who never forced me into anything, always said that they would always advise me in the direction they believe I should go in, but they would never force me. Obviously, we're talking past a certain age.
Yeah.
This became the case. And
In case you
that
kids out
was,
there who are listening
yeah,
think that, Mum, you shouldn't be telling me
yeah.
anything. We're not telling you to do that. We have, a certain maturity levels, right?
Exactly. It's happened
Sorry.
at a certain age and maturity level, and that enabled me to have space to explore and grow, because I believe that I see my sisters and my brothers, and their parents, and they some of them are very open with their kids and others aren't, and some of my friends' parents weren't as open, and it then boxes you up, and it stops you from exploring in the way that we're born to. I truly believe that we're born to explore in a way that programmings and conditionings really dumb us down in that sense and numb us to fueling the desire to explore. So
Variety of
that
freedom.
was something, yeah, exactly. That was something I was very fortunate to have. And then after that, I just always wanted to grow. I always wanted to. And I think, I don't know if that's within everyone, probably not, but can it be? Yes. Is it within everyone naturally? Maybe not, but can it be nurtured 100%? Because I think the only thing covering it, as I said, was, conditionings, programmings that are very strong, and things like that. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you. That ties beautifully within what we call human psychometrics. Is in an area that I specialize in, human influence patterns and profiling structures, where you've just said that we say within the human psyche that there's a natural inner self DNA level, what you're born with, what we call natural or nature, and then there's the nurture element, which is your environment and the people you hang out with and what you learn from a scenario, which is non-DNA, it's more environmental.
Yeah.
So those are the two things that you've just shared, and the beautiful point here is what is very inspiring for myself to hear is, and I'm hopefully the audience as well, that it's trainable, that you can get into that space of release. Wonderful. If anyone's just joined us, this is the Empower Hour, episode 80 with Aimee Buchler. She is a tremendously inspirational young coach, health coach, holistic coach, and a person we're going to touch in a moment with reference to food balancing and stuff of that sort of nature, where you can actually take command and actually control and give your health the best chance. So if you've just joined us, please, scrub back and listen to the journey so far. It's been power packed so far. I've been thinking, all I've been doing is listening, going, yeah, that's amazing. So please listen back on how she overcame loving and looking after her mum through a cancer death and moving forward as well. Welcome back, everybody. And Aimee, I have to ask you a question. So today, you help mentees and coaches, and you truly live that laptop lifestyle, that ability to be anywhere across the planet. You're in Brazil right this very moment, right? Sao Paulo, and how you're helping your mentees and your clients that you're still working with. What simple, you help them through health, I understand, and maybe even their actual dietary as well as their physicality, as well as their spirituality, the whole holistic bunch. Can I ask you a few questions? Some of our audience has sent me some questions, would you believe, already? And some of them are asking, are there any tips you could give with maybe 2 or 3 tips, maybe 4 if you can, for diabetes that somebody can actually handle and help? And also hypertension, which is blood pressure. They're the 2 that have come up really, really strongly. So it'd be really helpful if you'd have any tips for people to see if they can manage, or any advice you've got around diabetes and hypertension.
For sure, it'd be a pleasure. First of all, I would always recommend anyone, as we spoke about previously, to get a mentor or a coach, or work with someone if you are struggling with anything with health, whether it be you just want to, work out and change your body, or whether you're suffering with something like diabetes or cardiovascular disease or anything like that, to start working with, I really advocate the natural ways. So
Right.
going to work with herbalists and functional doctors, we call them. So
Mhm.
in naturopathic medicine, or even naturopathic nutritionists and things like that, because the difference between naturopathic medicine and functional medicine and then conventional medicine
Mhm.
is that it looks at the body as a whole. All systems are interconnected, and it's really focused on preventative measures as well as healing,
Mhm.
not just treating the symptom.
Mhm.
And conventional medicine really has its place. It's saved millions of lives. It's unbelievable, but a lot of the medication is damaging to the body, and we enter into something called polypharmacy, which is we take one medicine to counteract the side effects of another medicine.
Mm.
And the cycle then can continue, and we can understand what happens from there. So I really advocate working with a natural therapist of some kind. But some tips that I would give, so for diabetes, it's obviously a blood sugar control issue. So number one, upping your green vegetables and upping other colorful vegetables is absolutely key,
Mhm.
because you will have a spike in blood sugar when you are eating sugary foods or carbohydrates.
Right.
And what these vegetables do is their fiber content slows down the sugar spike. So
Wow.
it's a really important thing to have alongside carbohydrate sources. The second really important thing is obviously to
Just
reduce your sugar intake
just to touch
massively.
on that first one, if I can, if it's
Of
possible.
course.
Just on there. So what we're trying to say is, if you have a diet that's less colourful, and colourful with the naturopathic and the functional medicine is specifically about the greens, the reds, the yellows, the pinks, and the
Yeah.
purples, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So trying to introduce that sort of stuff into your diet, or would you say replace? I mean, would it be a good move to introduce? Because some people are sitting there, maybe they're as egotistical as myself with my hygiene, with my food, and I mean,
Mhm.
not really. I'm joking, but maybe they're thinking, well, hang on, I love my meat and two veg, and I don't particularly want loads more. But or I don't want to lose my meats or something. What would you suggest there?
So I wouldn't suggest losing meat. Talking about diabetes, you don't really need to cut down on the meat right now. It's more focused on the sugar, because what happens with diabetes type 1 and 2 is either the insulin cannot get the sugar, the glucose, into the cell, or type 1 diabetes, there's not enough insulin. There's no insulin being produced by the pancreatic cells. So you have to inject. So those are the two options. So it's a blood sugar issue. So what we want to cut down on is the amount of simple sugars and carbohydrates. So this is point two, and then I'll come back to point one.
Please, yeah.
So point two is cutting down on simple sugars. So this is, white breads and high sugar foods, processed foods, high fructose foods. So fructose is the sugar content in fruit.
Okay.
So some fruits are low sugar, berries are good options, kiwis, things like that. But when we're talking about mangoes and papaya and banana and things like that, again, because it has fiber, the release of sugar is slower than having a dairy milk bar,
Got it.
because there's fiber inside. So it's not going to be the same spike. But you still want to be careful with your sugar intake when you are diabetic. It's very, very important,
Mm.
because you have too much glucose circulating in the blood otherwise, too much sugar. So that's the first, let's put that as the first point. Coming back to the next point, that is to, if you are someone who, you love your bread, there is no cutting out the bread or the pasta or the cakes or the cookies, first of all, try. And second of all, make sure that when you are eating these things, at least you are having a fiber source alongside. So
Wow.
this is why I suggest vegetables, because vegetables are obviously very, very, very low sugar, not like fruit, and they're a fiber source. So if you're having, your toast in the morning,
Mhm.
have toast with a side of spinach, or maybe eggs on toast with spinach or something else,
Ah,
just to help you digest that a little bit better.
that's beautiful. So supplementing it, basically just adding to help it being digested. Thank you for that. That's lovely. I'm sure
Yeah.
the audience is really, really taking value in that. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And I would say as a third point, we can get really carried away with juices. I'm going to put this as my third point because I see it so much in my clinics and with my clients. It's that juices, you have an apple and you're going to be full from the apple. But if you have an apple juice, they probably put 4 or 5 apples in there because it's removing the fiber content. The fiber content comes out. So it's literally pure sugar. So you really want to cut out the juice. Really want to cut out the juice if you're diabetic or pre-diabetic or have any blood sugar control problem. You really just want to let go of that. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. And things such as oranges and apples. So oranges specifically with the rhinoflavonoids, the surrounds, the white stuff that's inside there. Does that help? Is it good for the blood sugar level, or is it good for heart, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, all of these things are polyphenols, we call them. They're antioxidants, and they have amazing properties for the body. They're full of vitamins and minerals, and fruit and vegetables are both full of amazing nutrients and minerals. Much better than having a chocolate bar or anything like that. But again, when we're talking about diabetics, it's not a normal person in the sense that you cannot just treat fruit like it is your, free for all. You absolutely can't. It doesn't matter really what fruit, unless it's very low sugar fruit, as we said, like berries and kiwis and some grapefruit, as long as you're not taking any medication, because it does interact, grapefruit and medication.
Wow.
So yeah, that's
Looks
what
like
I
I'm
would
going to have
say.
an hour conversation with you just on this time round. I think we'll carry on. That's been wonderful.
Definitely.
Please. So what you've just said very clearly is to to supplement come off sugars, basically supplement your complex, your simple carbohydrates with complex carbohydrates, and that's slow release. That's wonderful. So add greens. Don't necessarily remove your meats if you like the meats, but add more greens. A colourful diet.
Totally.
Keep an eye on the fructose and sugar intake. That means the refined sugar and stuff like that. And the third one was, sorry again?
Juices. Remove juices. Just don't do it.
That's amazing. Thank you for those 3 brilliant tips. And I'm sure I'm going to have a ton load of text. I can see my phone going bright with a light every now and again. So that's people texting, because obviously everyone tends to know my number. I'm very open and active. So there's one more. Thank you for that, for reference to the diabetes. But there's one more question I'd like to quiz you, because I've got you right now. Got you. So hypertension, which is blood pressure. They go hand in hand at the moment, obviously with diabetes and so can you give us any pointers towards anything to do with blood pressure?
Yeah, of course. So blood pressure, first of all, if you've got high blood pressure, you want to avoid high sodium foods. So foods that increase, your sodium in your blood, essentially. That will also put pressure on the kidneys. So sodium is salt.
Salt, yeah.
Yeah, so salty foods, things like processed meats are super high in sodium. You don't want to be using table salt. Replace your table salt with pink Himalayan salt or herb salts and things like that, because it's a completely different kind of salt. The pink Himalayan salt and salts like that have a lot of mineral content inside that actually support the body. So, but you definitely want to be reducing the salt content in general. So adding salt to food and stuff. Yeah. You then obviously, again, with hypertension, you want to increase your greens and your vegetable intake, because what's happening is you've got pressure in the arteries with hypertension, right? So leading to the heart. So you want to really increase your antioxidant level. So by doing that, you want to increase your greens and your fruits and things like that, because what happens is the body starts to create oxidative stress inside. So what that means is you have all these molecules that are basically rushing around, and they're missing an outer electron, right, in the shell. Okay, going back to chemistry. So because it's like as if we humans are missing an arm, and we start frantically going around trying to find another arm. And in the process, we're battering the organs, and we're causing oxidative stress. We're causing damage. And these molecules are called free radicals, and they come from, any kind of pollutants in our environment, toxic foods, things like hydrogenated oils. So this is the main point. You want to stay away from hydrogenated oils and increase your greens. Those are the two last points I'd like to add.
So,
hydrogenated oils like canola,
yeah,
rapeseed oil,
got it.
vegetable oils, things like that, they are completely processed and they will cause blockages in the arteries over time.
Wow. Even things like sunflower oil and that kind of thing as well?
Yeah. The only oils I would really recommend working with are, cooking with avocado oil and coconut oil. They have very, very high tolerances to heat. So they do not oxidize when you cook with them. The other ones are already processed, number one. And number two, they then oxidize when you heat them. So you're literally ingesting free radicals, those little molecules that have
One
lost
electron
enough.
missing. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're literally ingesting so many of them and they're causing mad havoc in the body. And then above that, if you're not eating enough antioxidants to antioxidize the
Yeah.
oxidation, then there's a lot of damage caused. So
That,
reduce the oils and up the greens.
brilliant explanation. Thank you for that. And for oils such as olive oil, are they the right ones? But
Yeah.
they've got quite a low burn level, haven't they? Though.
Yeah, so olive oil is sensational. Extra virgin olive oil, you want a dark green bottle. You never want
Yeah.
plastic or anything that's exposed to light. And that is something that you use on your food directly. It's not something you want to cook with.
Okay. And what would you substitute? I mean, what about things such as butter or what is known as purified butter or ghee, as it's known?
Yeah, ghee is great to cook with. Ghee is awesome. So totally you can cook with ghee. Butter, if you're going to use butter on your food, grass-fed butter, pasture-raised grass-fed butter, like any meats I would recommend as well, especially for hypertension as well, is, meats nowadays are pumped full of terrible things and antibiotics and all these things that cause oxidative stress in the body as well. So, try as much as you can to be pasture raised meats and eggs and, the products coming from the meat
That's a
as well.
brilliant message. Thank you. Amazing. I think that's just been it's been a masterclass within itself. So thank you very much for that. It leads me to a question. If somebody would like to get hold of you, because it's very clear that you know what you're doing at such a young age, but you obviously time and space is not really a problem because of the fact that you can coach over the phones and over the internet as well. If somebody would like to reach out to you, how would they get hold of you, Aimee?
They can get hold of me via my website. So that's www.aimeebuchler.com.
Could you spell that? I know it's there, but just A
Of course,
I M L.
AIMEEBUCHLER.com,
Okay,
or via my Instagram, Aimee Buchler, simple AIMEEBUCHLER.
perfect.
And yeah.
And the young gen are definitely going to go that one. The older gen are going to go the other way. I know
Yeah.
that. And so then they'll get in touch with yourself, and literally you could do a kind of like an assessment on their health, that kind of thing, before you moved on,
Yeah,
and then work with
definitely.
them
We
with
have
with a plan.
a long consultation. The initial phone consultation is free, and then from there
Yeah.
we see if we're, a match.
Perfect. And then you'd basically help them with aspects of the body and lifestyle. So holistically,
Yeah.
optimizing the body through what areas? So it'd be
So it's training.
nutrition. Yeah, physical training. Right?
Physical training and movement. So it depends on the individual what kind of training they want to do. Nutrition. So nutrition for aesthetics and for health reasons. So if they have any complications, that can be dealt with as well. And then lifestyle. So I look at, biohacking. What's their? I basically take a tour of their home and we look at their Wi-Fi signal and their water filtration system and how they're storing their food and how much electromagnetic field energy are they exposed to and radiation. So
That's massive. That's such a deep dive.
yeah, it's a deep dive.
Brilliant,
Yeah,
brilliant.
it's a
I
deep
love
dive.
it. Aimee, this has been tremendous, and I hope the audience has really, really loved it. This evening has been a very, very powerful evening where somebody can take some real simple steps away with themselves. It brings me to, this is the section where we ask you a bit about your legacy and in your life. This is not something that I'm actually inspiring or wanting to pull forward, because when we will leave and depart this life or in rebirth in another form, whenever that was due, whenever it was written. But the question I'm going to ask yourself is, hypothetically, if you had an epitaph where we said, it says something like, "Here lies Aimee Buchler, the lady who," how would you end that? This is a legacy that you want to leave on this planet. How would you end that, please, the sentence?
The lady who wants to empower people to live a more fulfilling and healthier life.
Wow. So I like it. And you've obviously clearly proven you can do that for them. What does that mean to you?
To me, it's really, the thing I want to be able to do is to help people help other people too. And I think when people are inspired by their own journey, they begin to help others. And that's what happened to me. My coaches taught me that it's not about just helping myself. That's the example you learn to then help others too.
Wow.
And that's the key for me.
That's just beautiful, because we stand by a principle that there's just not enough people thinking about others, themselves and others, because to help myself to help others is the key, and that's what you're trying to
Mhm.
share. There's an old saying that says, if you feed somebody a fish, they'll eat for one day. If you teach them to fish, they could fish for an eternity. But the philosophy that we're trying to share here is not to teach them to fish. Teach them to fish, but teach them to teach others to fish. And you've
Yeah.
created a whole ecosystem that will never need anybody else in the world.
Yeah.
And I've blessed
Exactly.
you and make you continue to that. Any last words you want to add to that, though?
There's actually a quote that you just reminded me of that I
Yeah.
love. And
It's a
it's,
wisdom quote that I would like to share. Yes.
yeah, well, there's two, but the one that matches what you've just said is, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And when the student is truly ready, the teacher will disappear. And I love that because it just shows how the cycle continues, you
Now
know?
that's powerful, because usually people advise it as, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Yeah. And then you're
Hmm.
saying, when the student is truly ready, the teacher will disappear. That's a beautiful addition.
Yeah, I love that. And I would say, to finalize, my favorite quote of all is that it's a Hippocrates quote,
Mhm.
and it goes, "You cannot heal in the same environment that made you sick." And
Wow.
so that's a really powerful one that I want to leave with you today.
Well, please help the people in San. Help dimwit me feel on that one. You cannot heal in the same environment that made you sick.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
and
Please
yeah,
expose and expand.
yeah, like, we a lot of us are, we get sick in a certain environment, hanging out with a certain, with certain people, and being around certain people and energies, and doing certain things, and habitually living a life where we then
Eating
try and heal in that life,
and
in that
eating,
same environment.
yeah, and eating certain things, right?
Yeah, and eating certain things. And it's basically, have a look at what your life is like. Why did you get sick? Let's go to the root cause. Why did you get sick? Could it be a combination of environmental triggers, mental, emotional, or physical triggers? Let's look at that and change that. Change your environment and your surroundings in order to heal, because you cannot heal in the same environment that made you sick. There's no way.
Brilliant. And if I asked you, on those kind of like pick me up days, because those are beautiful quotations for others to be inspired to take their health in their own control, because a lot of people misinterpret that. There's a question I've got in my head, but basically that majority of the current society, individuals, whichever country it is, we put our health responsibility onto a doctor or onto somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
There's an old saying that says, life happens to me or for me. So we earn this, we get into this helpless state, as you said, dependency on medications and stuff, where we put the health and say, yeah, doctor, fix me. I'm
Exactly.
broken, fix me. What you stand for, what I'm hearing, Aimee, is a new wave, a new understanding that says, no, be your own doctor. That does not mean taking
Mm-hmm.
away the doctor's facility, because there is a place for that, absolutely.
Of course.
I'm just saying that by taking your own health into your own consideration and your own control, responsibility is a great word, that we can actually live a better life. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe, and this is a quote that it's another quote,
Please carry on.
truly becoming an adult is taking responsibility for your life. And I think so many of us are stuck in the childish victim mentality, for, consciously or subconsciously for many reasons. But truly becoming an adult and mastering your life is taking control and responsibility for everything that goes on. And that's when you can truly heal. It's in that space, even if you do have a doctor or you don't have a doctor, and I think my passion is empowering people to learn about the things I've learned about, not just because I'm passionate about it, but because it is something that we should all know. We should all know this from school, but we don't, but it's not like it should just be a hobby. This is something we live in a body. We feed our body every day. Like, this is something we need to know about.
Wow. That, don't get me started with school. I tell you what, you touched on
Yeah.
the topic there. But school is a wonderful place. There is no doubt, convivially, and our heart goes out to all the children of today, where in the UK they're working from home, and no
Yeah.
convivial atmosphere is being created. But there are some real positives in school as well. But the health elements of school, maybe even the health of finances and these sort of things, which are not really shared in school. I mean, I think that's a really, really positive thing to advocate, as you just said there yourself.
Absolutely.
What do you think, in specific, the school could kind of like add into the curriculum when it comes to health and well-being?
I think it's important for schools to start educating children on food, on what foods do in the body, and what, foods are important, the very basics of macronutrients, fats, carbs, and proteins. What are they? What do they do in the body? Why are they important? The very, very basics is what we should know. We should also, I believe, start to learn a little bit more about how the mind works and how it operates from an esoteric perspective as well as a scientific perspective, because there's now so much scientific research on the both combined and coming together that it's no longer an airy fairy topic. It's a scientifically backed up topic now. So it's time for that to come into play and for people to become more empowered. But I do believe that, there is a reason why it's not in the schools. And I think having too many empowered people would not necessarily serve the current political format. Agenda, exactly. So, I do hope that in the future, when, leaders do change, that will change as well.
And would it be valid in saying that as long as the human being, the child within, has grown up, for example, taking the responsibility for health, because you're at tender age and you realize at 18 there was more to life, and that was a journey of responsibility. That was a journey of taking action within oneself, isn't it? So that message, I hope it gets through to everybody, where every single person listening tonight and around the globe has that authority over at least stepping up and taking their own responsibility within themselves without blaming a third person. Isn't that right?
Yeah,
Wonderful.
definitely.
Do you know, honestly, it's been an absolute cracker. I wish I had 2 hours with you.
Yeah, we can do it again.
We've kind of just started the flow, and I've just realized
Yeah.
we could have started a million more hours on this as well, Aimee.
Yeah.
Maybe in future, when we do get a chance again, maybe later in the year or early next, we'll have you back with gratitude, and maybe you could share a bit more about your current journey and how it's been gone. So on behalf of the Salam Radio crew, myself, Sukhi Wahiwala, and the whole of the Inspired Tribe globally, we would like to thank you for truly inspiring us and being an individual who's empowered people to take the action of self-responsibility with their own health in their own way without handing it to anybody else. So I want to thank you very much, Aimee Buchler, all the way in Brazil in the nice warm weather, freezing over here. I'd like to thank you on behalf of everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing. Thank you.
Brilliant. For everybody else, this was episode 80 of the Empower Hour show, live with radio, with Salam Radio through the Salam Radio application. If you'd like to join us as you are now on YouTube, if you'd like to join us now on the radio app, please download the application and listen to these shows live. Next week, we will be speaking to another empowering guest, somebody who's faced up with life and taken a journey to the next level. Please tune in again every Tuesday between 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock UK time, and I'll see you